Let's go.
Welcome to the Soul Fam podcast, where we expand your personal universe. I'm Diana Marquetta, and in each episode, Soul Fam co-founder, co-creator Lexi Strummer-Solden and I interview the world's most rising and longtime experts in consciousness, spirituality, entertainment, healing, and science. From Earth's dimensions and dimensions way, way beyond. On the Soul Fam podcast, our frequencies are high and your heart chakras will open as these powerful voices of today share cutting-edge research, profound experiences, and valuable knowledge for your world in this out-of-this-world, thought-provoking, envelope-pushing interviews that could only take place right here on the Soul Fam podcast.
Welcome, Natasha.
Hi, Lexi. Hi, Diana.
We're so happy. We can't wait to talk to you. I don't even know where to start with Natasha. She is my soul buddy that I didn't know I had until about, a year ago. Natasha is a sound healer, a metaphysician, a veteran makeup artist, a student of the mysteries, and so much more.
Thank you. That's really kind of you to say that, and thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's a real honor to be speaking with you both.
Natasha, you have some really special talents, and you shared some things not to reveal you, not to out you, Lexi, but shared some personal guidance for Lexi recently that has been really astounding to me, and just your methodology. And I'm super curious about it because you feel like a very advanced being.
Oh, yeah, she is. She's very advanced. I think you're referring to the esoteric numerology and the gene keys and maybe the
genetic profile gene keys.
Yeah.
Dying to know more about this.
Well, it's kind of I've taken various different esoteric practices that I am a student of, and I'm still learning them. This is really only the tip of the iceberg for me. And as I study them, I see how they can fit together in a system that could be useful to help guide others to a path of illumination. And the gene key is one part of that. The other part is esoteric numerology, and then also looking into the natal charts of each individual, which, in my opinion, is the blueprint of how we are made up energetically. So by looking at certain aspects of our natal chart, we get an understanding of what we're trying to move away from and who we are becoming. And that I sort of look at all these different technologies, and then I intuit with my clients to help them get onto a path if that's what they're looking to do.
So, girls, these are gene keys. So when you say they're gene keys, is this part of our DNA? How did you two work this out? Is it through Lexi's voice? Is it through her astrological chart? All these things.
No, Richard Rudd, who is an incredible human being who has dedicated his whole life to esoteric studies and spirituality, basically channeled this philosophy from his master teachers in the unseen, and then obviously all his hard dedication of study in the material world. And it's a complete technology that if you go to the genekeys.com, you can input your information and it spits out that printout that you are, well, it doesn't spit it out, but, it generates the chart for you. And then using either an online process called the Golden Path or the book, it's a self-study, contemplative practice of basically igniting the divinity within. And I find this a very useful tool to guide people to, because it's a form of spirituality without the dogma. I think a lot of people have moved away from religion because they've just had the jack of, the fear being put into them. And really what we're here to do is learn emotions and unconditional love, first and foremost for ourselves, and then for every other sentient being. And I think, you really, in order to understand this concept in its entirety, first and foremost, I feel that the individual has to believe in reincarnation. And that is something that dogmatic Christianity has, and also Judaic practices, has sort of, eliminated from the narrative of who we are.
Can we back up a little, Natasha? Let's back up. Okay. So Natasha and I met at 22 Teachings during the pandemic. I think we were just doing Zoom classes, Zoom tarot, Zoom astrology, Zoom lodge, Zoom magic ritual. And I always thought Natasha was pretty cool. She just seemed cool. She knew things. She had really smart comments. And then I saw you do a sound healing at an event, and I was blown away. I mean, here's this tiny little person who's this powerhouse. And the way you manage those sound bowls, the first one was so beautiful and calming, it made me cry. The second one was so rectifying that it really just hit me on a gut level and felt very clearing. So my first or second impression of you was of a sound healer. Is that sort of how you got into metaphysics and magic? We're just curious what brought you to this path and sort of what happened when you discovered your magic.
Yes, that's such a great question. Thanks, Lexi. I was guided to the Hermetic Kabbalah at 22 Teachings, where you and I both study. And it was through the people at the incredible humans at Spellbound Crystal Store, because I was making these crystal grids, and I was very curious as to what was drawing me to gridding and crystals in general. I had no prior experience in anything sort of metaphysics. And so when I inquired as where I could learn a little bit more about rocks, they were like, oh, you've got to go see Naha at 22 Teachings. So my segue into the magical arts and sciences was actually crystals. And then from that, when I was guided to 22 Teachings, it was at the beginning of 2020. And they had just started a crystal school, which I'd missed out in enrolling in. And then when the world shut down in March, I was like, well, what else do they do here? I didn't know what Kabbalah was, let alone Kabbalah with a Q. And so that sort of got me on the path. It was really, the pandemic that got me onto a spiritual path. And then as my awakening and my healing intensified, as I was opening myself up to more intense spiritual healing, then the sound guidance came through. Although I'd already experienced tuning forks in group ceremonial environments, my lower self didn't really know what to do with them, but my higher self was really guiding me to start using them, and then the bowls came after that.
It seems like you've been doing this a long time. I mean, I like sound bowls, I like tuning forks, I like guitars and violins, but can I just sit down and play something well? I don't know. I just feel I'm actually shocked because I thought you had been trained to use the sound bowls. I thought you'd been doing it for 25 years. I had no idea. So all of these new skills just sort of came in as your spiritual unfoldment is getting going.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of amazing, isn't it?
Yes. Another thing that you do, Natasha, is you really help people. You want to provide support for people to, I guess, integrate different parts of themselves. You do this archetype healing, right?
Yeah, it's not so much archetypal healing, but it's interesting that you bring that up, Lexi, because there's sort of been information that's been coming through about starting to integrate more archetypal healing. And I think what I do is I integrate the subconscious personalities through a method called personal self integration. Which is something that I'm still, once again, studying. I feel like I'm going to be a forever student. And it's going and meeting your 6 internal subconscious personalities plus your inner child. And from there, we become very familiar with our inner landscapes of our subconscious mind and how that affects our external worlds, basically. And as we start to integrate these subconscious personalities, what we are essentially doing is harmonizing the masculine and feminine energy, which is innate in all beings, including ourselves, in order for them to entwine to start being able to operate from the high self.
Can I ask a question about being a makeup artist?
Sure.
So, in your work as a makeup artist, you know, we're talking about integrating into being the higher self, and so of course we want to look our best. You're amazing at making people look their best. Did you see things in people as you're working with them about their other higher selves or their inner selves or anything like that?
No, because prior to 2020, I was an atheist and a hedonist. I was just.
Oh, okay. Good times. Good times.
I wasn't
Definitely good times.
inspired to do much other than exist in the world. Now, however, after sort of coming through my own healing journey and really looking at how I can be best of service, what I am doing is starting to incorporate my energy and sound work and my makeup work together in the preparation of the skin on my clients. So I do an energetic attunement, through face mapping and biofield tuning and energy work, and then I do the application of makeup on top of that. So I really treat this.
What? That's wild.
That's perfect. That's perfect for Diana and me, anyway.
Yeah. We could use that. Can we do some energetic attunement right now on us?
It would be my honor. Are you kidding me? Let's do it. So that
wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, to go back to work as a makeup artist, because I did have to step away to take the time to really invest in my own health and my own healing. And now I'm ready to go back, and I'm ready to align with people that want to make the small changes within their own life, so that they can show up better in the world.
Can we just get the past life story with the two of us out of the way, Natasha? I don't even know how to. I mean, should we? Yeah. I mean, I think we can. I mean, that's part of the reason we're here. So you're, All right. Let's do it. Okay. So Natasha, you're obviously very comfortable with past lives. I am. I usually speak about past lives in a joking sense, to where people around me, they don't know if I'm kidding or not. They think I'm probably not, but they don't know. I sort of use humor as I sort of deflect whether or not I mean it with humor. So it was very jarring for me when you and I shared a vision of a past life where we died. And this is all while we are doing a spiritual art project at 22 Teachings in the middle of the day. So I'll paint a picture for you, Diana. So we're painting these tattva cards, and that is the tattvas. Okay, maybe you can help me with this, Natasha. They are a ancient Eastern, I want to say Vedic form of meditation and breath work where there are different breaths that I think correspond with different elements.
And sacred geometry.
And you meditate in different...
And sacred geometry.
Sacred geometry, right. So there's a symbol for each breath, and we were consecrating and painting our own tattva cards, and we were sitting, there were, I don't know, like 30 of us, maybe 25 of us, sitting shoulder to shoulder on these long wooden tables with the sunlight pouring in, and we were painting, and I think we were running out of time because we were told, okay, got to move on to the next one. Finish this. Maybe we can do a spiritual chant while we go. And so I'm sitting across from Natasha, and we're like painting, and hers is perfect. Mine's like wacky. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's still good. I know what it means. And I look up and I notice like that my breathing, like I start getting a little bit nervous, and I notice that she's sort of shutting down a little bit as the clock is speeding up. And everyone else is continuing, but we're sort of just folding in on ourselves, just really uncomfortable. So then we finish, and Natasha says, "Oh, that was unpleasant." And I said, "What happened?" And she's like, "Well, I've just had an unpleasant vision." And then immediately I said, "Yeah, we like all died. We were in some library doing this in a past life, and we died." And she said, "Yeah." Everyone else around us is sort of like, either are they fucking with us, or what? Maybe we should have had the vision, or I don't care. But Natasha was so comfortable with it. And it was like, yeah, remember that lifetime where we were monks and we died? So after that experience, I was very shaken because, Diana, it's one thing to imagine that you have past lives and to think of where your past lives might have taken place. It's a completely different thing to have a real-time shared memory with somebody, and you're both sober, and it's the middle of the day, and it's something that you can't ignore. So after that, Natasha reached out and asked if I wanted to talk because I seemed shaken. And so we talked about it, and I was able to come to terms that past life memory was a thing. So my question to you, Natasha, is how are you so comfortable with this? When did you start being okay with that sort of thing?
I don't think it was a matter of me being comfortable with it. It's that I had to get used to having these incredibly sort of mystical experiences whilst others were around and we were sharing space. And so I had to start grounding these mystical experiences because, as I shared previously, prior to 2029, I didn't have any connection to any sort of spiritual practice. So in my healing, I've had to accelerate my learning at a very fast rate because of the way that I have been opening up since 2029. And so trying to understand what has been happening to me and the memories which have been surfacing, and also the trauma, because there's a lot of things that we could account for in our current lifetime that perhaps are associated to a former trauma that has happened in a previous lifetime, and the soul remembers that. And it shows up in different ways in our current incarnation. So it's not that I was comfortable with it. It's just that I had to do my own deep dive with why were these experiences coming up for me, and integrating them, and so that, I could witness them as experiences and not take them on as who I am or what I am, and realize that it was a part of me or a part of something that I may have been a part of in a previous lifetime, and just really trying to ground that to be able to integrate it and move on and not get caught up in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing your vision, or do you want me to? Or what memory did we have? Because I remember us being surrounded by books and then just being dead, and that was it.
I think what I said that sort of you looked up was like, oh, that didn't end well for me, did it? and that's when we started dialoguing. And so what I saw was a library and two people trying to get the books out of the library that was burning, basically. And we went up, we perished there in that library.
We went down with the books. We made the wrong choice, Natasha.
Well, but wait,
we don't need to do that.
I'm confused about this story. I get the scene, but why did this happen? And what's the lesson in all this?
Well, I think things come through the subconscious when they're ready to be released and processed, so that the soul can evolve, basically. And you can go into induced states of expanded states of consciousness in order to access these memories and this information. However, when something is ready to be processed and released, it happens. It's why it's called.
So for you, what's the specific lesson and what specifically happened in that memory? Because I think people, when they hear this, are going to be like, wait a minute, I've had this sort of experience. Yeah. I don't really understand what I was supposed to learn from it. I don't know why that happened in that lifetime.
Yeah, that's a really great question, Diana. I wish there was a simple answer for it.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, the study of the soul is something that really fascinates me. And, we are infinite beings. And not only are we spiritual beings having a human experience, but because we keep reincarnating to learn lessons that perhaps from the previous incarnation we weren't able to complete, we come back down and we meet these people again to perhaps help work through prior traumas. And I feel that that's what happened with Lexi and I, that we were supposed to help each other move forward from this trauma of a previous incarnation in this lifetime.
Absolutely. And I think for me, Diana, we bonded so much.
Now there's a sisterhood which is emerging from this shared experience.
Because we're trying to do it differently this time. I think, for me, specifically, the lesson that came through loud and clear for me after having this conversation with Natasha, where we did some integration and processing, she assured me I wasn't crazy. No, this happens. The other thing is that when you start studying metaphysics with people regularly, you can actually share dreams. You can actually interact with them on the astral and etheric planes. And there are books of letters and correspondences going back, I don't know, to the 1800s, where students of esotericism and the mysteries are writing to each other. Oh, hey, it was so nice to see you in my dream the other day. Like, did you enjoy where we went? So you actually do build up sort of, I don't want to say psychic connections, but unseen connections with other people, no matter what you're doing. You could be going to CrossFit every week. You could be going to a work Zoom regularly. Anytime you are regularly interacting with people and their energy, you are building up some sort of connection. So in the tradition that Natasha and I are studying, or at least one of the traditions, this sort of thing happens. So I'd read enough and known enough to know that this could happen. But I thought that it only happened to sort of the very elite minds of the mysteries. I didn't know that it was just going to happen to me in a random time, in a random place. I didn't know where it was coming from. So after we talked, And this came through when we were trying to finish these Tattva cards. And the memory was of trying to get books. The past life memory was of us trying to get books out of a library, very special books, sacred books, before the library burned to the ground. For me, it was, in spite of the time crunch, it's not the physical thing. It's not the book. The information lives on. Energy is forever. You don't need to sacrifice your own life to save a book. Yeah. Don't do it. Get out.
It's a beautiful takeaway. That is a beautiful takeaway. Wow.
Yeah. And I think it's tough when we discover things that we love, metaphysics, etc. Anything. It could be any hobby that you have. You can sometimes neglect everything else at the expense of your newfound love of whatever the hobby
or
is.
Obsession, you know.
Addiction.
That's where the shadow aspect can really reveal itself. You know, and yeah, that's such a beautiful way of framing your takeaway and your integration of it, Lexi. You're able to objectively look at it and get the lesson in it and know that you've learned the lesson. You don't have to repeat that lesson again. You don't have to burn for the books. Mind you, there are a few books that should be burnt. There should be a few book burnings.
But we don't have to burn for the books. We don't have to
burn for the books, for the knowledge, because the knowledge is within us. We just need to find the keys in order to unlock the memory of our soul.
But that wouldn't have happened, Natasha, if you hadn't reached out to me. Just first ask if I was okay, and then second ask if I wanted to talk.
Yeah. I mean,
about that.
This is the thing. I really care. I care about people. And I want to see everyone.
It's so obvious.
You know, this is the work that I want to share with people because I know how powerful it is and how big the transformations can be and how really tapping into your own divinity and being able to move away from separation and towards unity is really, I feel, where we are moving in our evolution on a planetary level and also as a species.
So I'm curious, girls, if Lexi's learned this lesson, have you learned your lesson as well, Natasha? Is this a mutual sort of thing? From a soul level, I mean?
Yeah, I could look at it objectively and realize that that was a part of me that was ready to be released and transmuted, and I have the tools in order to do that for myself, and I can help guide others through their integration process of these memories coming up.
So, Lexi, did you feel a level of freedom after that experience? Did you feel a level of sort of relief?
Yeah, I think relief is definitely the right word. Relief, and I mean, it's interesting. I don't know if this will make sense to a lot of people, maybe to some people, but when you have this sort of, I mean, this ravenous thirst for knowledge and truth, I mean, in the most pure, absolute kind of way, if you just really want to devote yourself to figuring things out, your books and your studies become extremely important. And I don't think that this is the first lifetime where I had my special little library and nobody's allowed to touch it. So to have the lesson come through that, you know what, it doesn't matter if you spill coffee in your grimoires. It doesn't matter if your cat chews up 2 years of, magical workings. It's not great, but if it does, that doesn't mean that you didn't do the work. That doesn't mean that you didn't exist, that it didn't matter. You cannot, again, as Natasha said, burn for the book. So for me, it was a huge relief. It was like, thank God. So if I spill coffee on everything, that's still fine because the knowledge is within, as Natasha said, and it doesn't matter. The thing doesn't matter. it doesn't. And as we move farther and farther away from our attachment to things, I think that's going to become more important.
Yeah. I feel that, that mind-heart connection is really important for the integration of knowledge. We can absorb as much information from whatever incredible, ways that we absorb knowledge, but really to integrate it and to live it from a heart center. Otherwise we're just regurgitating the words of others. We only really can embody knowledge when we actually live it. And then it becomes experiential. So we integrate it.
How do you know, though, Natasha? How do you know? Do you ever, not question or doubt, but do you ever wonder if the knowledge that's coming through, if you're like, okay, well, I'm going to put this in the maybe pile, and then I'm going to put this in the definite pile of let's definitely explore this and turn this into something, because it feels that we all have very busy minds. And when information comes through and these breadcrumbs appear, how do you sort of narrow things down for yourself? It seems that in this infinite universe, there's an infinite number of paths we could take to self-discovery.
Yeah, for sure. I always get a very overwhelming heart opening when I know something is mine to do. And what I've learnt is to wait, to not act immediately on that emotion, because there might be more information that still needs to come through. And I always ask myself whether what the information is coming through is mine, or whether it's for a group, or whether it's for the collective. And so I think spiritual discernment is really, really important. What is mine and what is not mine? Because I really do feel that sometimes we get muddled up with the information that comes through. And so to really wait and sit with it before acting upon it sometimes will alleviate unnecessary explorations down paths that perhaps weren't ours to do. So I'm always, if something comes through and I've learnt to wait, if it continues to come through over the next few days, then I'm going to inquire. I think it's really important to remain curious and to ask questions, yourself questions, to really ascertain what's this information that's coming through and how can I share it and with whom do I have to share it to? Because sometimes the information I receive isn't for me. But then I don't really want to be going and sharing information with others without their permission. I think that's another really important thing with spiritual discernment, is that just because you've received information, it doesn't mean that you have to go and share it. Because you could be affecting somebody else's karma and accruing your own.
Can you say that again, Natasha? Because I feel like especially because there's been so much energetic shifts in the last couple of weeks, really, that not only are we all sort of shaken up, but a lot of people are getting a lot of messages in dreams, in their daytime experiences, and, they're probably awakening to things they didn't experience previously, and it feels weird also. So that sense of discernment is, things are coming at them that they don't necessarily know how to handle. Yeah. So I'm curious about that sense of discernment and why that's important right now, especially.
Such a great question, Diana. Thank you for asking that. So spiritual discernment, what is yours and what isn't yours? Ask yourself, is this mine? First hit, best hit. And if you still need a little more support, placing your hand on your heart, taking a little bit of space away from the situation or the dynamics or the energy that you're currently in, and asking your heart, with your hand on your heart, is this mine? Your heart never lies. So the first hit's the best hit. And then remain curious. Ask more questions. I like to use dowsing as well. I have a pendulum placed in almost every corner of my house because sometimes I get overwhelmed with the information. And, it's hard for me to discern at times what is mine. And I've made so many mistakes along my own path with information that perhaps I have either held back or I've overshared. So I'm speaking from a place of trial and error, really.
Interesting. So I'm just pausing, and as you say that, to let that sort of resonate with me a little bit, because I certainly feel like it's hard not to feel upset sometimes when you sort of get downloads or make realizations, and it's a little bit of a discipline to be discerning about sharing. Well, and I mean, certainly I know from experience, you got to be a little careful about who you share these things with.
I mean, I just overshared with everybody in the land. So, but I know what you're saying. There's some. I mean, I think that's sort of my brand now is oversharing. But with spiritual discernment, I get it. There's the things that are sub rosa, both in the studies, like things we don't talk about, and within ourselves too. You've got those sacred things that, yeah, maybe that's not for everybody.
But there are, I think that's why it's important that we create community and we create containers so there are safe, sacred places for sharing, right? That's important too. I think as a species,
Amen.
We've gotten really good at this transformational work in a really short period of time. What we need to catch up to is the integration of all this transformational work so that we can embody the actual transformational process.
That part's not fun.
Mm-mm. That's hard. That's messy. That is messy. It's hard to look at your shit.
Sure
and
is.
So many people don't want to look at it because it is so hard. There is so many layers of ancestral and societal trauma and, all childhood trauma. Like we live in a society which is so traumatized. Everybody is addicted to something in one way or another. We have to heal these wounds if we are going to move forward and evolve.
People may want to know, how long will it take?
It takes what it takes. Mine's been really, really fast and really aggressive at times. So taking the fast routed route perhaps, is suited to a particular type of person. Everybody has their own pace of unfolding. Everybody is at their own level. We can't compare ourselves to others. That's the society we live in, We just need to accept each individual for who they are and where they are at in their own path and know that there are some of us that can hold the frequency and the energy for many others that yet do not have the ability to rise above the density. So we need to help them.
So raising the vibration.
Raising the vibration.
For the collective.
Creating communities and safe containers for people to do unfolding. And healing.
Can you talk a little bit about the inner archetype work that you do? I'm super curious about that.
The personal self-integration work.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is. Where do we start? How did I get here? Hang on a minute. So, hang on. Personal self-integration is a modality that was introduced to me through my mentor, Tiffany Barsotti. And it is a process through meditation and experiences that you meet your internal constellation of subconscious personalities. So we each have a masculine and a feminine energy, right? That is innate in all beings. We are all made up of energy. And in order to make energy work, you need a positive and a negative, a yin and a yang, a masculine and a feminine. Whichever way that you want to look at it, it's all talking about the same thing. So that is the innate energy that is within us. And then within our psyche, we have, other personalities. And the way that these personalities show up is a mental judge self, an astral judge self, a body self, an outer personality, and an inner child. And this is the format of PSI, the way that I have been learning it. And so even though it's not archetypal as such, it's talking about the innate energies that we have within us. And so once we meet our subconscious personalities and we start forming relationships and dialogues with them, usually it's these personalities that have kept us safe. And so the judge selves generally have to do with our shadow aspect of ourself. Our inner child will represent the childhood and any traumas that we have been inflicted, that have been inflicted upon us in early childhood. And I believe that all of us have suffered in one way or another of some sort of trauma in our early childhood years, which is what also shuts down our extrasensory abilities and psychic abilities to fully develop. Then you have the body self, and it's usually the body that's going to give an indication energetically where there may be an interference or an imbalance. And then there's the outer personality, which is us, the vessel that holds all these other inner personalities. And so the idea is to integrate them so they work as a cohesive team to help us do and fulfill the contracts, the sacred contracts that we agreed to do prior to incarnating into this lifetime. And our subconscious personalities have their own story that they share with us as we deepen our relationship with them.
We had a session. I'm going to overshare again, Natasha. So something was happening where, I just was so tired and exhausted. And I think it came up that I had mono at 17. And so we decided that Natasha would help me call forth my inner teenager and she would pull some cards. So we had a Zoom a few months ago and I finally decided to take out, my high school albums, all these pictures that I didn't want to look at. And I didn't want to look at them because I think, maybe the mental judge self, but it was very much tied to a sort of just high school bullying sort of trauma. It was tied to how my hair looked and how I looked and hormonal imbalances and how my body changed. And so what came up in that was that some of these things were coming up via my inner teenager / inner child because I tried not to think of her at all. I just completely erased this person from my memory. I was looking through photos. There are things that I don't remember that were good things. I did not want to look at the pictures of myself where I didn't like the way I looked. I didn't want to remember the times where I was called weird, called ugly, bullied relentlessly. And it was really hard because when you just move on to the next stage of life, you just say, okay, well, I'm not high school anymore. Hello, college. Hello, whatever I'm doing now. Hello, professional life. Those however many years that have gone by, that little person who survived all that is still sitting there like, hey, what? And that's what we discovered.
Yeah. And it was really interesting when we asked you, what age was it that you had mono? And it was around about the same age. And you share that you still feel that you have symptoms from that experience now as an adult. And so I invited you to perhaps go back and try and heal that aspect of yourself to see whether those symptoms that you're experiencing now later on in life perhaps actually heal themselves.
Yeah, I think the more I look at those pictures and just love on that inner teenager who got through so much, the more I just love on her and thank her for everything and really apologize. Yeah, then I apologize for not wanting to look at her. And she's beautiful, but she went through a lot and she had many awkward stages. So that I think is going to be a very long process for me with healing. It will not be as quick as the past life integration, which really, I mean, that was a half-hour Zoom. I had the lesson, I was done. This, I think, loving those parts of yourself that maybe you don't want to look at, that might take longer. But I had no idea that I could set up a session with somebody who I think is fantastic and who I trust and who could help me talk about those things. It felt so self-indulgent. Like, oh, I'm going to work on my inner teenager now. Like, oh, but it was really important. And so Natasha, I can't thank you enough for that too.
Oh, honey, look, it's my absolute honor and it's such a pleasure. I love working with you, Lexi, and you just bring so much joy to our sessions. I love it.
Well, it was amazing. It was amazing. I don't even know what to say. You don't really think about these disparate parts of self. There are some traditions, I guess, in the shamanic healing world where it's called soul retrieval, maybe, or you're journeying and you're putting together fragments of self. That would be the closest thing I could relate it to. I don't know. Where do you think?
Yeah, well, I like when we did. Do you mind if I share the method that we use?
Yeah. Please. Yes.
So the way that I call forth those aspects of self is through the tarot, because I connect high self to high self. Now, once I have the connection of the high self, because I've been through the process myself of personal self-integration, I had to go through it first before I could even start the coaching that I'm still in the midst of, in order to be able to facilitate it. So I've been through the process myself and every day working on the integration of my subconscious personalities. So hopefully one day I'm purely operating from my high self. And so when I connect with my high self and I asked for permission to connect with somebody else's high self, all the subconscious personalities come up, and whichever one is ready to speak, or whichever one we are calling forth, I can intuit through the tarot where the issues might lie and where the guidance is for how to heal that aspect of self. So it's through the divination process of the tarot that I start to understand a lot deeper, and I'm able to call forth that part.
Did we ask the question, by the way, Natasha, how you got wrapped up in all this, how you got started in all this?
We did. I mean, it's a longer,
because it's a deep dive. You didn't just do a little tarot. You didn't just do a little. This is not a light thing for you.
No, this was
or a superficial thing for you, I should say.
Yeah, this was a technology that I was guided to study. Look, this will take me the rest of my life to even understand. However, I feel that going and studying at least at the very surface level of each of the Hermetic arts and sciences has given me an insight to how deeper this technology can be used for the evolution of our species. Because we need to look at the ancient philosophies and really bring them forward and marry them with technology and science and everything else that we've got, which is so advanced. But yet, as a species, our consciousness hasn't raised to a level where we can actually truly use all these technologies and sciences that we've developed for the betterment of our planet and of our own evolution. We seem to be using it for warfare against each other. So if we raise the level...
That's interesting. Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
Well,
the warfare part.
Well, look at what's going on in the world at the moment. Everybody is trying to grab power, and there is so much greed. It's a complete off balance. Like it's not working. It hasn't been working for 2,500 years. It needs to change. We need to raise the level of consciousness in humanity. You know, we've been forced into a box. And we've got to think outside of the box. That's the only way we're going to survive. Yeah.
So on a very personal level, is there a lot of things that we've sort of done to ourselves, detrimentally speaking, from the outside? So part of what you're doing with this technology is to delve from the inside.
Correct.
Which may be like the new journey, the new exploration.
Yeah. This is an inside job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And everybody has the responsibility to, you know, be the lineage breakers for their families. I feel if you are incarnated on the face of the earth right now, you have signed up to be a big part of the transformational process that we are currently going through. So there is a responsibility to heal the wounds of our ancestors and that of which others and ourselves have inflicted upon us.
What's been going on with why do things feel so hard right now, or weird, or difficult? What is your take on it, Natasha? Is it the astrology? Is it what we've done to our planet? Is it what's going on inside us? None, all of it?
So my theory, and it is not my own, like I made it up, my belief, based on science and spirituality, is that the whole universe is going through an evolution. And as a planet, Earth is part of the universe, and as are we humans, the species, part of that as well. But, you know, we think that we are the smartest beings in the universe. Hate to tell some people, we're actually not. In fact, our density is the lowest. So we would be wise to want to raise our vibration higher so that we can perceive what is actually really going on within our universe. The planet is in the midst of her own evolution, and we, as occupants of and visitors of her being, need to rise with her frequency as well. That's just my opinion.
I understand that. I relate to that very wholeheartedly. So it's interesting. So my sense is that, you know, there's sort of, just scientifically speaking, where, you know, the universe expands and contracts. So part of me feels like, not that I have any idea, I'm certainly not a scientist.
You definitely know, Diana.
So the universe is compounding upon itself at the moment, and we're at this moment that's going to expand rapidly, very suddenly. So we're feeling this intensity as human beings, dense little human beings that we are. We're feeling this intensity at the moment that in some case, that's why we're tired and we feel suffocated and we're exhausted, and but yet we're having all these sort of experiences as we're simultaneously expanding. So then the universe is going to suddenly expand and things will be very different.
Yes, providing that we do
on an energetic level.
Yeah, but we need to do our inner work as well so that we can rise in frequency.
So we can survive, so then we can maintain, so then we can evolve even further.
Exactly. That's why, you know, this life experience isn't just about knowledge. It's about taking that knowledge and implementing it in the physical world and making it experience and learning from the experiences. I mean, you can read as many
so
books
that we
as
can
we
evolve
want.
individually as humans.
Yeah, exactly. You can read as many books as
and
you
then
want
collectively.
and, regurgitate the work of others. Or you can read a book and try and implement it and embody it in your life and see what results come out of that.
Exactly. So that quantumly speaking, so to speak, we're evolving not only individually, but as a collective, and then as a planet, and then as part of the greater universe.
Exactly.
As the rest of the universe expands and evolves.
Exactly.
Which sounds really far out.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, I think we're more important than we think we are. I mean, I think it's very, we think it's just my life. It's just me as an individual. It's just me experiencing this with my family, or me experiencing this with my school, or with, my workplace. But it actually gives us a stronger sense of sort of being universal citizens.
Yeah, I think that's the illusion of separation, isn't it? It really is. We think that we've got to be separate. We think we've got to, be, independent. Well, there's a difference between independence and sovereignty, in my opinion. Someone who is sovereign means that they are being guided by something greater than themselves with what is actually best for themselves, and not because somebody else is telling them that's what's best for them. So they have to be independent.
Right.
Do you think that some people maybe, what's crazy is all of our text messages and email alerts are going off right now, which means what you said was just really important. Maybe, can you repeat that, Natasha?
I don't. It was. Yeah.
It was. I know that came through. Okay, that always happens when super important things come through. Either we lose power or something weird happens.
Yeah, I've been noticing that
interference.
There's been a lot of construction work around. Like, this place is usually so quiet. And the minute that we started recording, so there you go.
Yeah. All of us have experienced that. I literally had to tell people to shut up while we were recording. They immediately started trying to interfere.
Yeah. Okay. I know, Diana, you need to go soon. Natasha, I don't know how much time you have.
I can stay if you've got some more questions.
Okay. Stay for a few more questions. I just have a few more, and then you can always come back. We've had people come back, and we have return guests and things like that, because there's obviously much more.
So much to this work that,
so much. I don't even know. I have a question. I mean, what if you have a bad attitude? Not in an earth sense. What if you just have a bad attitude? You're like, I don't have to do my inner work. Everybody's going to ascend eventually, probably. I'm just going to sit back. I don't really feel like it. I mean, can we be a little lackadaisical with ourselves right now?
I mean, you have free will. You can do whatever you want, but you're going to reap what you sow. And quite frankly, right now is not the time to be kicking back and thinking that, I don't have any work to do. I mean, I've got some speculations of what might happen. I don't know if those ideas are fully evolved to be able to share right now. However, this is not the time to be taking a back seat. You won't survive.
We've talked about that before. We need to talk about it again. Okay. Well, it might be time to wrap up part 1, but we really want you to come back for part 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah.
I want to talk about taking the front seat instead of the back seat.
Yeah, let's get into it. I'd love to get into it with you ladies.
So yes, I've got stuff going on in the background too, which can't do anything about. How should people contact you, Natasha? Where can they find you? Let's say somebody's interested in working with you. How do we find you? What services do you offer now, or what kind of support is how can people connect with you, and what might they be able to get going with you at the moment right now?
Thank you so much for the opportunity of sharing that. I would say that the best way to get in contact with me would be through my website, harmonichealinginstitute.com. Also, the Instagram is the same handle, or through direct messaging on Instagram at Natasha Severino _magic with a K at the end.
Beautiful.
Fantastic. Okay, we really need you to come back, because I think
beginning.
We just scratched the surface here, just a
Barely.
tiny bit. Yeah, barely.
Yeah.
Barely.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's crack the lid on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Natasha.
Thank you so much, Natasha.
Before our manners disappear. But wow, that was very powerful, and I'm super excited to talk again, and I'm sure our listeners will be too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me on your podcast, and I look forward to coming back.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Soul Fam podcast. Be sure to tune into every episode, where we dive into a different rabbit hole of the known and unknown to empower you in conscious living and exploration of the greater universe. We hope you leave each episode with a little stardust in your hair and inspiration in your heart. With love from your Soul Fam.